The Disney Renaissance era is arguably the best in Disney history. It's full of big hits and, debatably, no misses. We've already covered who we consider to be the most good heroes in this era, but we still have to establish which baddies are the most vile. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Disney Renaissance Villains, Evil to Most Evil. For this list, we'll only be covering the small handful of Disney films that were released during the Disney Renaissance era, and while the main villains of these films are legendary on their own, no villain is complete without their lackeys and sidekicks, so we'll be including any help the evildoers get. This time, we'll be starting with the least evil and working our way down to the most ruthless and vile. Starting as the least evil, we have Sabre. It's common for animated movies to place carnivorous animals as the bad guy, and it works pretty well for a lot of movies. And having this jungle cat go after an infant that itself had made an orphan is a good way to show how dangerous he is. But being a dangerous predator doesn't mean Sabre was evil. Carnivores, just like any other animal, have to eat, and it makes sense to go after those that are defenseless, just as Kala's first child. Unlike many Disney movies where all the animals can communicate with each other, this film was set up a little differently. If they weren't a gorilla or elephant, chances are they didn't speak at all. The hippos, crocodiles, and Sabre all remained silent when it came to actual words. This emphasizes that Sabre and the others that could be a threat to the gorillas were running on instinct. There wasn't a feud between them or a score to settle. The hunting was driven by the need to survive and nothing more. Next on our list, we have the hyenas. Like Sabre, they have a basic need that they need to fill, to be able to hunt and eat. In fact, Scar was able to get the hyenas to join his pursuit of the throne by promising them all the game they could hunt. The hyenas were loyal to no one but each other, though they feared Scar because of the power he held over them.
It's dinner time, and we ain't got no stinking entrees!
But as soon as Scar attempted to throw them at Simba in an effort to avoid his wrath, the hyenas turned on Scar by devouring him. We could count this act as evil, but it was more just retribution for Scar's actions. Next, we have Lefou. Though his name translates to the Fool, he manages to show some capability as a villain. We mentioned on our sidekicks list that he's surprisingly conniving, considering he has a lot of moments where he isn't very bright. Oftentimes, Lefou was building Gaston's ego and sucking up to him by doing whatever is asked or ordered of him. For Gaston's more elaborate plans, he makes incorrect assumptions and needs things explained, but this isn't something unique to his character. In fact, that can be said about any Disney sidekick. But Lefou gets some extra evil points because he had a way of getting people on Gaston's side.
You don't get much crazier than that!
Whether it was getting the bar to break out in song to cheer up the huntsman after being rejected, or getting everyone to agree that Maurice needed to be locked up, he managed to get everyone to go along with whatever Gaston needed. Taking our next spot, we have Pain and Panic. Much like Meg, they are at the mercy of Hades and whatever plan he comes up with. But we dock them points because unlike Sabre or the hyenas, they aren't driven by instincts that have adapted over thousands of years. They make the best of a bad situation by trying to meet all of Hades' standards and clearly fear him. On the other side of the spectrum, they also get enjoyment out of their work. They were eager to kill off Hercules and kept the failed assignment a secret to save their skin.
Let's just kill the kid and get it over with.
They delighted in tormenting the gods when Olympus was being taken over, only apologizing for their deeds when they had an angry Pegasus on their hands. But for all the power they enjoyed when Hades was doing well, they were also happy to let Hades suffer in the River of Styx if it meant they could be spared any pain. Up next is the god of the underworld, Hades. Hades got the raw end of the deal when it came to what the gods were assigned to rule over. In mythology, Hades is said to be the only god to not be able to rule on Mount Olympus. Instead, he got the underworld, a domain that he was stuck with after drawing the worst lot when the Titans were initially sealed away. In the Disney rendition, though Hades is allowed to see Hercules after his birth, Hades is still bitter towards Zeus. It made sense that he would use the Titans against Zeus in a play for power, given that their sealing was when Hades fell from grace.
I have a special job for you, my optic friend.
He was treated as an outcast by the fellow gods and goddesses, and it led to all of them feeling Hades' wrath. Though we give him some leniency due to the strain of his work and social standing, Hades was very underhanded. He used Meg as leverage and attempted to have Hercules killed to fulfill his goal of ruling on Olympus, but his need to always make a condition during a deal was his downfall. Next, we have the famed sea witch, Ursula. Much like Hades, she also was pushed from the position of power that she had initially. Both she and Triton were the children of Poseidon and were meant to share the throne ruling over the sea after his passing, with Triton being given the staff and Ursula being given the shell. But when Ursula turned to dark magic, Triton banished her, and it made her bitter, hence why she wanted the Triton for herself and the king out of the way. Much like Hades, we give her some leniency due to her being shoved out of her rightful place as ruler, but at the same time, she is underhanded. She offered the mer people solutions to gaining their wildest dreams, but at a cost, and when the payment wasn't made, she robbed them of not only their new happiness, but everything.
You belong to me.
Considering that she sabotaged Ariel a few times during their deal, it's hard to be sure if Ursula didn't do the same to the others, and it was even more certain as to what she did with the people she cursed after they were transformed. While Hades was reckless in how he tried to take over Olympus, Ursula caused an unknown amount of damage to not only the ocean, but to the surrounding areas. We've all at one point or another seen what happens when the oceans are out of control. No one is a villain quite like Gaston. While Lefou has more of a relationship with the town, Gaston is seen as a hero and role model. He's a strong and capable hunter that can eliminate any threat and gather as much meat as the town could possibly need. With the bar decorated with all of his best game and his chair decorated, Gaston is treated among the town as a noble. It makes it easier for Gaston to get people to trust his judgment, and he takes full advantage of that. No one questions him when he says Maurice needs to be locked up, with Gaston claiming that Maurice's ramblings about a giant beast in a castle made no sense. Everyone rallied behind him when he demanded that they storm the beast's castle in the middle of the night, stating that the creature was a threat to their livelihood and getting everyone in a state of panic, even though anyone objectively looking at the situation would see that Gaston was upset, Belle was affectionate towards Beast.
I say we kill the beast!
And of course, Gaston rallied everyone for a spur-of-the-moment surprise wedding, and everyone just accepted it. We get that things were different in the time this story takes place, but that's still a ridiculous amount of power to hold over a community. Next on our list is Governor Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe was one of those people deluded by his need for power. His ultimate goal was to arrive in the New World, find a ton of gold and jewels, and go back to England where he'd be rewarded with a higher status. When the men arrived and dug at the earth for days with no result, Ratcliffe began to panic about his career, saying that he was doomed.
I haven't found as much as a speck.
When Wiggins comes into his tent with a prop using an arrow, Ratcliffe comes to the ludicrous conclusion that the native tribe has all the riches and wants the settlers out so they wouldn't have to share. Even on the surface, the idea doesn't make a lot of sense, but Ratcliffe was certain there had to be something withholding his success from him. After all, he had heard plenty of stories of others going back to their countries with riches. While Ratcliffe didn't have his men brainwashed for a portion of the film, he was an expert at using fear to keep his men in line. He threatened hanging with the charge of treason should anyone affiliate themselves with the natives the way John had been. When Thomas showed up at the camp trying to get help for a now Captain John, Ratcliffe seized the chance to declare war on the tribe under the guise of getting Smith back, when all Ratcliffe wanted was a tribe wiped out so he could claim their non-existent gold and jewels for his own. Even when the men stood down, Ratcliffe picked up a gun and attempted to kill the chief. Our next placement goes to the Titans and Cyclops. They lose points since they thrive on destruction and chaos. To them, it doesn't matter if they're attacking gods or the innocent mortals of Greece. Everyone is free game, and that's what makes them so terrifying and formidable. Each Titan had a very specific ability that brought suffering to anyone in their path. One that froze the land and threatened to impale anyone with shards of ice. One that used magma from the earth to melt everything away and leave it to decay under a layer of rock. One that tore across the land in violent winds, and one that crushed everything underfoot. Then the Cyclops that wasn't so much an elemental force as it was just a being that used its size to its advantage. These creatures destroyed crops, misplaced families, and killed countless people. In fact, when Hercules first tries making his debut, he overhears the civilians talking about how much they suffered the last time the Titans were free, with the family recalling fires, earthquakes, and floods. Next in our ranking is Scar. He's a fan favorite and for good reason. He's the villain you love to hate. While Scar having to endure being unable to hunt large game on his own and losing the throne is understandable to an extent, there's no debate that he was heartless with how he went about gaining power. The way he took down Mufasa was brutal, and not just because of those eerie final moments where he's looking his own brother in the eyes before making the king plummet to his death. Scar could have chosen some other way to get Mufasa into a compromising position, but out of all those possibilities, he chose to use Mufasa's son as bait. He filled the king's final moments with fear and betrayal. Then, to really rub salt into the wound, he manipulated Simba by blaming him, asking, "Simba, what have you done?"
If it weren't for you, he'd still be alive.
This was a little kid, and Scar was pinning a murder on him, making Simba think he had to run away from home or possibly face death at the hands of the Pride, before telling everyone that Simba died tragically by Mufasa's side. On top of that, Scar didn't care about the well-being of the Pride lands. He let his hyenas hunt to the point of the place being destroyed and refused to leave out of stubbornness, even if it meant everyone had to starve to death. But Scar is also weak in a lot of ways. On his own, he isn't able to hunt. He's smaller and weaker than the other lions, and was only able to defeat Mufasa by using emotional manipulation. When Simba returned and remembered everything, Scar tried to save his own skin by offering up the hyenas as the real enemy, and attempted to blind Simba with ash to get the upper hand. Taking the bronze medal, we have Jafar. Much like Scar, he's one of the go-to villains among the fanbase. He's always one of the first mentioned when the topic of Disney's top villains comes up, and we get why. Jafar not only holds political power and is able to twist things in a way where he's always in power, but every move he makes is also backed up with his magical abilities. He was able to hypnotize the Sultan for years, controlling the entire country from the sidelines.
For the princess to marry me.
And though his plans backfired, he was able to come up with a lot of dastardly solutions to his problems that would have succeeded if Aladdin wasn't so lucky. He almost got the lamp and killed Aladdin until Abu bit him and pickpocketed him. He could have been rid of Aladdin again had the genie not saved him from drowning, and his only downfall was his desire for the same abilities as the genie. But he wasn't a dim-witted foe like some movies have. For a large part of the movie, he was content with his dream of someday being Sultan, just so he wouldn't have to answer to anyone else, including Jasmine. But once he had the lamp and a taste of power where he could do anything he wanted without worrying about the consequences, he started to lose sight of his original goal and shifted his attention more on gaining Jasmine as a queen, and then finally focused all of his efforts on killing Aladdin for getting in the way. Taking the silver medal, we have to rank Clayton and Macklemore together. Where a lot of villains on this list are desperate for status and power, these two got a lot of joy from just exerting strength over those too weak or lacking in intelligence to put up a fair fight. And they not only endangered people, but innocent animals that were on the verge of extinction. Clayton played nice until he learned where the gorillas were, playing the role of protection for what was meant to be an educational trip of observation. When he found the hideaway, thanks to Tarzan, he had everyone locked up so he and his men could take all they pleased. Young, old, it didn't matter. All Clayton saw were dollar signs.
I've got some hunting to do.
When Tarzan fought back, Clayton tried killing him. Even when Tarzan attempted to help him, Clayton was driven by a madness that consumed him. Macklemore was a similar story. He was doing worse off than Clayton financially, having to live off the radar and making a living selling animals alive or as lifeless bodies to be turned into wallets and handbags. Like Clayton, he made a point of trying to get rid of anyone that threatened his plans. In Macklemore's case, it was a small child. But that didn't stop the poacher from taunting Cody as the boy dangled over crocodile waters. Not to mention the overkill of trying to shoot the rope when the crane refused to work. Macklemore wasn't just interested in finding the eagle after Cody got in his way. He felt he needed to annihilate Cody in a way you might hear about on the Investigation Discovery Channel.
There's more than one way to skin a cat.
At our top spot, we have Frollo. From the very beginning, Frollo is driven, chasing an innocent woman until she crashes onto the steps of Notre Dame, and then attempting to drown her now orphaned child. Frollo took in Quasimodo not out of the goodness of his heart, but out of fear of what would happen to his soul. He taught Quasimodo his own warped view of the world, telling him that all was evil and the world would never accept him. When he became fixated on Esmeralda, he had countless people imprisoned and sentenced to death. burning the entire city of Paris as he dealt with anyone who needed to be made an example of.
You will pay for this insolence.
He gives advice on how to properly whip prisoners, so they offered the wanted information, calling the location the Palace of Justice. He called Phoebus from the Crusades to hunt down oppressed people and their hiding spot in the Court of Miracles, only offered to free Esmeralda if she accepted being his, having a very creepy obsession with possessing her, and when he couldn't have her, he declared her as a witch to be burned. He was truly one of the most frightening and realistic villains Disney has ever released. Frollo didn't use any magical abilities like Jafar, and he didn't have an army of mythical beasts at his disposal or a zany animal sidekick that thirsted for blood. Frollo was just really good at using religion to justify his cruel actions. He saw himself as righteous and not to be argued with, which made him one of the most infamous of the Disney films, even to this day. Alright, but what do you think? Who's the most evil villain of the Disney Renaissance era? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.